Okay, so I'm back. For Billy, I'm here. Everybody else, I'm here. Okay, so I would like to start with show and share items to demonstrate the importance of proteins. Which for me, of course, are the most important thing in the entire whole world. But still, what?
Not chocolate.
Oh, see, he knows me well. So, chocolate. So I will start off with a simple question. So I have 3 ounces of milk and 3 ounces of yogurt. Which one of the two have higher moisture content? What?
Milk.
Milk. Who agrees? Raise your hand if you agree. So raise your hand if you disagree. What do you think then, Joshua?
They have the same moisture. They have the same moisture.
How did you know that? He's right, you know. They have the same moisture content. So what happens is, or very close moisture content. So what happens is when you have milk, you add culture, you incubate, and then the milk pH drops to 4.6 about, and that's the isoelectric point of casein. It's a milk protein. And then since there will be no more charges, the casein are going to come together and form a gel. Yogurt is a gel, is a soft type of gel. So the product will gel, and the gel entraps water. So it's a 3-dimensional matrix that will entrap water. So really, at the beginning, you don't have any difference, but then if there's a syneresis where some of the water syneresis out of the yogurt, then you lose some moisture back. So protein gave you this texture in milk. Okay. So I have 3 ounces of cheese. Which has more moisture content, the yogurt or the cheese? What do you think, Joshua?
They still the same.
It would depend on the cheese, like if it's a washed rind.
This cheese.
Or it's been aged.
Look at this cheese. So you don't want to answer me anymore. What do you think?
Yogurt.
Yogurt has more moisture? Are you sure?
Because the cheese curd, like, that's where the hydrophobic one comes and then it's less.
So you're sure? Okay. Yes. So the yogurt has more moisture because it's a different mechanism. The cheese forms in a different mechanism. Cheese is not a gel. It's a coagulant. So basically when you prepare cheese, you add an enzyme to milk, chymosin or rennet enzyme. And sometimes you add culture too, but the rennet enzyme hydrolyzes a portion of the casein and disrupts the micelle stability, the casein micelle stability in milk. When that portion of the casein gets chopped up, then proteins are going to come together and not only form hydrophobic interaction, they're going to form calcium phosphate bridges. So they kind of fuse together, and the water or the whey is kicked out. So you'll have the curd, and then you'll have the whey. So of course you lose moisture. And then of course the cheese, some of the cheeses get pressed, and they will have less moisture than cheeses that were not pressed, depending on what cheese you're formulating. Okay? So when you're formulating cheese, you're separating curd from whey. Again, there's a different mechanism of how the protein formed that.
If you're making a cheese like Parmesan, though, the salt wash on the exterior for osmosis, does that remove more moisture?
Yes, but I cannot say for sure because I'm not familiar with what the Parmesan cheese processing. But Parmesan in general has very low moisture content. If you remember from food analysis, it has the lowest moisture content among the other cheeses. Okay, let's see what I have here. So I originally had the dough, but it's melted. So I prepared the dough, but it traveled with me so many different places today that it melted. But the idea is when you form a dough, your dough has a certain viscoelastic properties. It has this, you can stretch it, mold it like a Play-Doh, basically. What causes this functionality? Yeah? I'm going to go with Sven. The gluten proteins. So, is there gluten in wheat? You're all sure about that? Joshua, what do you say? Is there gluten in wheat?
I think gluten is in the most wheat.
In the what?
I think gluten is in the wheat, unless you and it's like gluten-free wheat.
There is no gluten in wheat. Gluten is the protein matrix that forms when gluten-forming proteins are present. So wheat has gluten-forming protein. They have different names, glycine, tannins. When you mix the flour with water and then you start kneading, you start doing the physical denaturation, then the proteins start interacting with each other and then start forming a viscoelastic matrix, and that's called gluten. So what I did this morning is I took a portion of my dough and I washed it under water. So I just played with it under water and washed all the starch out. This is what I end up with. This is your gluten. That's your like chewing gum kind of material, but that's your protein. Now there is some starch entrapped in it, of course, and if there is fat, it would be entrapped in it as well. But most of the starch was washed out, and that gluten matrix formed a really nice elastic texture. This is what gives the bread its functionality, or the dough its functionality, so that you can make bread and other baked products. So I have different types of bread here with me. To illustrate this, my piece of bread broke, but ignore that part. It was a whole piece. But this is a loaf bread. It's not that great in volume, but anyway. So what gives the bread the capability to rise, okay, is the viscoelastic properties of the gluten that's formed. It will allow it to rise and capture air from water evaporation during baking. So you will have a really nice elastic piece of bread with volume. Now this is not the greatest volume type of bread, but that's the one I found at home. Now this kind of bread is a different kind of bread. So have you seen pita bread before? What?
It's our capsule product.
I should evaluate it then.
Yeah.
So pita bread does not require elasticity as much as a loaf bread. Why is that? Because the way it is formed, you want to take the dough and sheet it, right? You don't want it to shrink after you sheet it. You want it to maintain a certain circular size, diameter. You don't want it to be too elastic. You want it to be more extensible. So there's two functionality of gluten. You have the extensibility and you have the elasticity. So you want more extensible gluten matrix than what you need for loaf bread. Okay, so what characterizes this is the type of flour that you obtain. Flour from particular wheat. So you have soft wheat and hard wheat, and they differ in the different protein components. So the different protein components and the ratio of the different protein components will give you either a very elastic property or a viscous or extensible property, or a balance between the two. Okay, so not every wheat product or wheat variety has the same types of proteins. Okay, so I have a piece of pound cake here. If anybody wants to eat it later on, after I touch it all, you can. You missed the fun parts, sorry. Okay, so the cake obviously is very soft and there's no elasticity whatsoever. So it really, you can break it very easily. So in there, first of all, you don't have as much flour as you would have in a bread dough. Second, the type of flour mostly is the soft wheat variety flour that doesn't have a lot of elasticity. But the main ingredient that gives you what you need in a cake, you don't need viscoelastic property in a cake. What do you need? Can you guess the functionality of a protein that you would need in a cake?
Starch, gelatin, moisture.
Protein functionality. Huh?
Is that forming as foam?
Foam, but, okay, so foam is important, but what's in a cake batter? You have fat, and you have aqueous. So eggs are important in cake. So egg proteins are important for cakes, muffins, anything that have this mixture of aqueous and fat. So you have a different type of protein functionality that you would require in cake. Okay. So I have here, hopefully this maintains the structure I wanted to, okay? It's been traveling with me, everything's not working as supposed to, but it didn't go. So this structure is stabilized by what?
Gelatin.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Gelatin. So it's a meat protein, and it is known to be an excellent gelation agent. So can you give a guess to the concentration of this protein in here? Concentration. How much of it you need to get this type of gel? Give a percentage, Billy.
Like 1 to 200 parts?
Possibly what?
Well,
Per
just
100,
saying
per
general.
million, per
Like a ratio of 1 to 200 parts is what I was saying.
1 to 200 parts?
Yeah, so if you had 200 milliliters of, or,
So you're 0.5%, speak,
Yeah,
simplify it? 0.5%?
Yep.
Usually people say 10% and I ding them and I say no, it's much less than that. But that's not 0.5, it's 1% actually. So my point is, you just ruined my point, the complete point. You just messed me up. My point is 1% of protein can turn water into gel. So protein is so powerful that it will induce a completely different structure at a very, very low concentration. But not all proteins can behave that way. So if you want to form a gel from whey protein, you need at least 10% protein to form a thermally induced gel. So if you wanted to produce a thermally induced gel from pea protein, for example, you need at least 15 to 20% protein. So every protein is different, and every protein will have a unique functionality. And that's what part of what you're going to do in the lab is you're going to look at different proteins and run a couple of structural and functional characteristics to see how they differ. So some proteins are extremely soluble. We call them golden proteins for sport beverages. So usually athletes like to get a clear water drink that is high in protein. They don't really like the shake and go. They like just to get a clear beverage. I don't know why, they just like clear beverage. So not a lot of proteins can form clear beverage. Actually, in fact, only as of now, only whey protein can be formulated to be a stable clear beverage at acidic pH. So casein can do that, soy protein can do that, egg protein can do that. Obviously, you don't want egg protein doing that. But so certain proteins have certain functionality, and not all proteins can be used for all applications. That's one message I'm trying to convey here. The last piece will come later in terms of demonstration. So this is my show and share item. Anybody would like cheese and bread, you're welcome to come grab and go. But all right, so from here, kind of looking at the gelatin and jello. Also, proteins are used for nutritional bars, just to increase the amount of protein. This is tofu, for example, replacement of meat. So you can use the gelling capability of soy to produce a tofu that can be texturized. This is not really texturized. And then you can use added proteins to a mixture that is usually used either for beef patty or hot dogs to enhance water absorption, emulsion, so you can add, let's say, whey protein to a beef patty to enhance functionality of the beef patty and prevent moisture loss or cook loss. Piece of bread are here, dual function of the proteins. You have the protein that requires for rising noodle, and you have this nice brown color. Due to what? Reaction. Yay. This is something you talked about with
Oh,
them?
we talked about most of the things. You guys are breaking my heart with the gluten network. They should know that.
Okay, breaking my heart. Okay, so here you have the Maillard reaction, which is proteins and reducing sugar impact. So the protein is contributing to the color. So of course we talked about cheese being a coagulum. And then here, the ice cream, the proteins in milk is actually forming an emulsion and a foam. So it helps, because ice cream is a combination of emulsion and foam, because you are emulsifying fat and aqueous, and also you're incorporating air. So in all of these and many more, you have major role of protein in your food. Okay, so knowledge check, you've had this question in your knowledge check quiz. This is from your food camp. So let's see what you guys remember. Moving forward, it's important to make sure that you guys remember these. Jenny, you're the brave soul. Go for it. Up. Anybody disagreeing with Jenny? What do you think, Joshua?
I answered I as well.
You say F?
Yeah.
Clever. Yes, so it is F. B is wrong because obviously the R group is not the main carboxyl and amine group. It is this group right here. You have the amine group, you have the carboxyl group. Depending on the pH, either one of them will be carrying a charge or both of them will be carrying a charge. But the R group, it depends. Some amino acids have an extra amine group, some amino acids have an extra carboxyl group, then they will add another charge. So B is not right, and of course it influences the R group influences polarity, because if you have an R group that is a long carbohydrate group, such as leucine, isoleucine, or you have a ring structure, or like tyrosine, tryptophan, phenylalanine, these are hydrophobic. So, or if you have arginine, you would have a group that has an extra amine that would be charged, that would be polar. Okay, so depending on the R group, the amino acid could be polar or non-polar. And yes, of course, it impacts the secondary and tertiary structure of the protein, because whatever the R group has, does it have a high OH group? Does it have an SH group? Does it have a ring structure? Does it have a charge? That will impact how the interaction is going to occur in order for the protein to fold. And of course, it's a great buffer because it has a basic and acidic. And you learned all that in food chem. So this is, I already said that, chemical polarity, hydrophobicity, structure, all of that. And I talked about the folding based on the composition, different amino acids, they will have different interactions and they will form different secondary and tertiary structures. Okay, what about this one? Yes, Billy?
I'm gonna say all of the above.
I will second that, yes. So protein functionality can be affected by denaturation state. Denaturation means any change in the structure, whether secondary or tertiary or quaternary structure. So its change in the structure will impact function. Sometimes it's desirable, sometimes it's not desirable. So for a protein like whey protein, in order for it to emulsify, you need to partially denature it. Why? Because it's a globular protein. So globular protein with an SS here, SH, and another somewhere, has S. So it's a very globular protein, and you have a lot of hydrophilic groups on the surface and very few hydrophobic residues. If you remember from your food chem, in order for a protein to emulsify, you need to have a good balance of hydrophilic to hydrophobic interactions. So partial unfolding will enhance emulsification capacity. Sometimes denaturation causes protein to polymerize and precipitate, which is not good for beverages. So definitely denaturation impacts functionality, and we're going to talk about methods of determining denaturation, and in lab, Kat is trying to get you to do DSC. If that works, that would be good. Okay, and number of thiol groups, that means SH group, hydroxyl group, not hydroxyl, sulfidyl groups. So the presence of these groups promote disulfide linkages, promote polymerization. So if they're there and they get oxidized, so if you have cysteine and another one from another protein, and the conditions, the pH and temperature are favorable for the reaction, you get cross-linking of an amino acid from one polymer, one protein molecule with an amino acid with another. Then you will get a large polymer formation, and that will cause precipitation, aggregation, which is not good for overall functionality. Okay. What about this one? I don't think this was on your knowledge check. Go ahead, Josie. G. Did you have another answer?
I was actually going to say G as well.
Okay, so it is G. So physical chemical functionality and functional properties are definitely impacted by the amino acid composition, because again you have to think of the polarity of the amino acids, the hydrophobicity of the amino acid in your protein, charges, functional groups, all of that. How would they impact solubility, emulsion, foaming, gelation, etc. And structural configuration is impacted by composition, of course, because you have several structures that can form. So the beta-casein is an open structure, beta-lactoglobulin is a globular structure. Open structure with a lot of exposed hydrophobic and hydrophilic groups make caseins what? Makes them what type of functional proteins? Open structure, flexible, natural emulsifiers, actually we call caseins, because they have the perfect configuration to interact with two different interfaces. Okay, what about this? Any guesses? So you all know the difference between hydrophobicity and hydrophilicity, right?
I think B and C.
I'm going to say John. Sorry.
B and C.
Did you copy? Were you going to say B and C? Let me see if it's correct. Yeah, it is. Took me a while. Yeah. So definitely. So the surface is very important, what's on the surface. So the protein might have quite a bit of hydrophobic groups, but they are hidden within the tertiary structure of the protein, or even the quaternary structure of the protein. What's on the surface is what's important for interaction with water. And that's what impacts the protein solubility. How much of that protein can interact with water? Of course, the more net charge you have, the more interactions with water you're going to get as well. And again, the net charge, also it's important to consider the surface net charge, more than the entire protein net charge. What about this? Any guesses, wild guesses? I'm gonna go with Ingrid. And I'm gonna say you're correct. So yes, so gel electrophoresis allow us to look to see the individual monomers. If a polymer is being formed due to heating, you can see that. You can also add reagents that will allow you to determine how the polymer formed, whether was the polymer formed was the formation of the polymer due to hydrophobic interaction, or was it due to disulfide linkage? So you can add a reducing agent and run your gel and see if your polymer would break. IR spectroscopy, I'll give you an example about that. It gives you an idea about secondary and tertiary structure of the protein and how it's changed. It changes due to different processing or modification. Mass spectrometry, you can do so many different things with mass spectrometry. You can do identification, looking at an unknown protein and trying to trace that to a library source. You can determine molecular weight. You can do sequencing, ladder sequencing. There's so many different things you can do in terms of structure, characterization, and identification. Okay. So with this very brief introduction, summarizing everything you learned in food chemistry and food analysis on proteins, we can move on and talk a little bit about the importance of protein ingredients in the industry and what the buzz it's getting. Goodbye to starch, goodbye to fat. It's the protein world. I'm telling you, it's serious business. So, yeah. Seriously, the global demand on protein ingredient is booming. They want more protein, and not just more protein, different types of proteins. So they want to get away from animal protein, all these vegan people out there. They really are looking for different sources of proteins. Also, people with allergy, they're looking for hypoallergenic sources of proteins. So, the different sources of protein nowadays, can you name a few that are very, very unique right now and they're booming?
Pea protein is starting to get more popular.
It is, and pulses proteins in general is getting more popular. Can you name another?
Don't they have like insect protein now?
Yeah, but vegan people can't. But yes, insect protein is really, last year at the IFT, like I don't know how many symposiums were there on proteins, on insect protein, and another source of protein that I would like you to guess. Have you heard of algae proteins? That's another one that is gaining much interest. So, and the prediction is that by 2020, the global demand will reach 4.6 million tons, which is quite a bit. And associated with that is, of course, the dollar amount, which is expected to reach about $29 billion. And growing at a really very, very high rate, 6.5% is really high annual rate. So this is tremendous. So in addition to protein ingredients that are your regular isolates, you're probably familiar with whey protein isolates, casein, soy protein isolate, there are also an important ingredient that is emerging, which is protein hydrolysate. So the reason it's emerging because they found that with hydrolyzing the protein a little bit will enhance functionality. So it is really booming in terms of being another prominent protein ingredient. So they're everywhere, basically, and very much demanded, not only for nutritional value, the replacement of ingredients that are synthetic. So the clean label drive, if you are familiar with it, so they are really looking for ingredients that will replace synthetic emulsifiers, for example, modified starch, another example. But seriously, they're looking into the ability of proteins to replace anything that is not label friendly. Okay. So what we want to learn is impact of structure on function. So in order to understand impact of structure on function, we need to characterize the structure. Okay? So when I say protein structure characterization, what can you think of examples?
Collagen is characterized by 3 strands of protein. Is that
So
what it
you're
is?
looking at molecular configuration. Yes. What else?
Isoelectric point?
Isoelectric form. Perfect. Is it on your slides?
No.
This is a tough one to guess. Yeah.
Size?
Size, molecular weight. Yep.
Functional properties.
Yes. Functional properties. Well, yeah. Okay. It's structure impact function, but yes. What else?
Composition.
Amino acid composition and amino acid. What's more important?
Order.
Order, sequence. Yes. What else?
Enzyme.
What?
Enzyme, like,
Enzyme activity, biological activity. Okay, this is functionality, but okay. What else?
Folding?
Configuration, yes. So along the line of molecular, go ahead. Polarity, very good. So polarity, surface hydrophobicity, surface hydrophilicity, net charge, all of that. So one more thing I was going to say is molecular interactions. So depending on the composition of the protein, it will take part in different interactions. Either interactions with water, interactions with proteins, interactions with fat, with carbohydrate, etc. So let's see, did we talk about everything? Whoa, we forgot one big one. Maturation state, main topic of today. What time do we end? 4:50. Well, I have 10 more minutes. We can fill it with so many good stuff. Okay. All right, so structure function characteristic or relationship is key. It's always important to understand structure, to understand the impact on functionality. So when we say structure-function interaction, we look, okay, what impacts structure? What impacts protein structure is several intrinsic factors. And you covered that in food chemistry. You talked about composition, sequence, reactive groups, hydrophobicity, conformation, molecular interactions. These are called intrinsic factors. That means factor native to the protein. Okay? So this is what makes the protein structure native structure, these components. Okay? Native, that means unmodified, nothing. But the nature of humans is not to leave things as they are. We like to interfere with nature. So we have extrinsic factors. We have environmental factors, processing, and modification. So we interfere with nature. We cause structural change. And by that, your native goes to the natured protein or modified protein. When you go from native to the natured, obviously your protein structure changes, your whole list of functionality changes. Because functionality is dependent on structure. So there are different categories for functionality. You have the organoleptic or sensory category. You have the hydration, that means interaction with water. You have the surface properties that allows interaction with either fat or air, emulsification or foam. And you have the structural properties. It gives you the viscosity, gives you the gelation, the viscoelasticity. Grittiness is not a positive thing, but it's also a structural property. So when we talk about protein structure, we look at molecular configuration, molecular size, association, surface properties. These are the key structural characteristics that impact functionality. So we say that we don't leave things as is, we interfere with Mother Nature, but we do that for a reason. So we process food because, of course, we don't want to get harmed by microbes. So we need to destruct microorganisms, inactivate certain enzymes like trypsin, well, enzymes and enzyme inhibitors. Like trypsin inhibitor, for example, in soy. If we consume soy raw, you're going to get trypsin inhibitor. With that, you inhibit the digestion of protein in your gut. Trypsin is a major digestive enzyme. So you need to process soy protein in a way or soy product in general, to inactivate 90% of the trypsin inhibitor. So it's a must. Obviously, development of flavor and texture. Did any of you ever tasted raw chicken? You did?
Yeah.
How does it taste?
Very chewy.
Well, that's the texture.
Yeah.
In terms of taste,
Good.
can't
It
even
doesn't-
imagine.
Doesn't have much of a chili. I mean, it was incredibly fresh, but, so, there hadn't been any opportunity for microbial development of flavor for the breaking down the tissue. It was, they were doing a side-by-side comparison once when I was in school about really fresh sushi and really fresh chicken, how incredibly fresh protein has no flavor, and the importance of aging.
That's my point exactly. So when you process food, you're developing flavor. So a lot of raw food does not have a flavor that is developed, so people like to get the flavor by cooking and processing and inducing changes due to heat. Okay, destruction of toxic compounds, improvement of nutritional value. This could be through the enhancing digestibility. Whether it's starch digestibility or protein digestibility, sometimes you need some thermal treatment to open up the structure for the protein. Some globular proteins, especially plant proteins, they're hard to digest. So if we don't partially denature them, they won't open up and be accessible by digestive enzymes. So it's important to process to enhance some nutritional aspects. Like I gave you the example of a globular protein, if it's partially denatured, become a better emulsifying agent and a better foaming agent because you have now better balance of hydrophobic hydrophilic interactions. Some proteins won't gel unless it is thermally induced, like gelatin. So collagen actually, when it's thermally treated, becomes gelatin. And enhance rheological properties overall. But along with processing, if it's not done right or done excessively, then you end up with undesirable impacts. So if you're preparing high protein beverage and you are doing some thermal treatment, if your thermal treatment is excessive or you don't cool right away, or you just excessively heat your protein or use a protein that is very thermally unstable, what's going to happen is your protein is going to precipitate out of your solution. Then you will have a beverage with proteins at the bottom. That's not good. I mean, not necessarily bad for you, but it's not good, desirable from a consumer perspective. Also, if you have excessive heating, you counter the effect of improved digestibility. You lose digestibility because now you are not only denaturing the protein, but you're inducing polymerization. So now one polymer becomes a big polymer with multiple proteins, and then the enzyme has a really hard time accessing the sites, the hydrolysis sites. And sometimes inhibition of desirable enzymes. So for milk, for cheese making, for example, the thermal treatment is different than when you're pasteurizing milk for milk consumption, because now you want to keep native enzymes in milk active, some of them at least, because during aging of cheese, these enzymes are important for development of flavor. Okay, so with the last 3 minutes that I have, or 4.5 maybe, I'm going to give you some industry examples where looking at structural characterization is really important. You'll find this really handy if you go to industry, whether if you work with protein or not, but really just to visualize or get some example about what we learn in classroom and how does that impact on a bigger scale. So structure changes during processing. And I just told you that when you overheat, for example, you're going to change structure, and that will have a negative impact. So when you are actually as a processor, you're trying to establish parameters of your processing, you want to ensure that these parameters you're choosing are not going to have a negative impact on your final product. Whether you have protein there or fat or starch, but in this case, protein. If you process in a certain way and cause a structural change that will impact functionality, you want to make sure you change your parameters. So it's important there. Valorization is tremendously important in industry. Do you know what valorization means? It has to do with money, definitely. In industry, everything has to do with money.
Repurposing something?
Making a low value high value, basically. A low value byproduct, making a high value item. Who can think of a perfect example, industry-wise, of valorization?
Whey protein?
Yes, excellent. Whey protein is the perfect example. So they produce cheese. Tons and tons of whey is produced. A few years back, it was thrown in the environment, and it has high biological value, so it's bad for the environment. So they looked into it, said, what's in this waste stream we can use and add value to? So it went from a waste stream thrown away and to a very high value product. They looked in there, they found high protein, structurally functional protein, nutritionally excellent protein. They developed technology to concentrate the protein and use it as an ingredient, and it's the most expensive protein ingredient today. So this is an excellent example for valorization, and there are many, many more in the industry, because in industry they want to try to use every single possible byproduct and change it to high value. They want to make money. There's no kidding there. Time. Don't you want to stay for 15 more minutes? I mean, do you have anything important in life on a Friday evening? Okay. We'll continue next time.
Yeah. Good thing I did say is she's
Actually, they have an assignment to
Oh, assignment, they have to go work on it?